So, what's the end game? A lot of times people ask me that question. Being that I live in my car and that I live this somewhat odd, mobile, nomadic, drifter type life, sometimes people ask me, Sam, what's your end game? And it's a fair question. It makes me think a little bit. I guess first I would start in my mind when I started this journey of downsizing, which it always started there. It did not start with I want to live in my car. It started with I wanted to live a more simple life to alleviate financial obligations, emotional and mental stresses. Financially, I wasn't underwater as far as like living in debt or things like that. I had been in the past, but it was just like I wanted to reposition my life that if something happened with my job, I would be able to have more options. Having more options to me is very important. It gives you more power in decision making and in your life. And also, a major part of my channel and my journey has been moving to Florida. And that was part of the reason why I wanted to live a more simple life, so that I could move to Florida. And even if I didn't make great money, if I had to change jobs or whatever it may be, I could get by and live a good life. So at the end of the day, for those who've been watching this channel, I was able, after 2 years living in my car in New Jersey, and eventually I ended up living in my car because, which I've documented in other videos, is that I was looking at downsizing, whether buying a smaller condo, a tiny house, or something in New Jersey. But the end game for that, always I said, Sam, the end game is not I want to live in New Jersey. That was never the end game. I said, so there's no way I'm going to commit to a property, because after owning a property for 15 years, I saw how entangled it is, how financially and emotionally you are entangled to an area once you put down roots and buy a property. And so I said, I'm not going to do that in New Jersey, because that's not my end game. My end game always ended up with living in Florida. At bare minimum, some type of home base, or if not living full time, this is going to be my home base identity. It's where I'll spend most of my time throughout my life, I plan to, and throughout my years. So that I said, well, then if it doesn't make sense to buy a property in New Jersey, and if I don't have my job situation in Florida yet, what do I want to do? So, because I was still working in the office for 2 years, I showed up every day to office. I wasn't working remote like I work now. I work in IT. I'm able to work remote. So I next looked at RVs, and I did a couple videos about that, because actually a person I worked with said, he was into camping. He said, Sam, you should look into RVs. You can be mobile, because it sounds like you are in a transition period in your life. And in a transition period, a camper would give you that flexibility somewhat. But then after looking into RVs and campers, what I realized, for me, in my opinion, it didn't give me the flexibility I wanted, because they're too entangled with either having a tow vehicle, where you're going to park them, and the lack of efficiency with gas and bringing them into any parking lot at any time is not always an option. So I thought, for me, for a single person who doesn't like a lot of space, who doesn't want more work, I don't want to tow things, I don't want maintenance, I don't want all eyes on me when I pull into a parking lot that everyone sees a camper. So I said, I looked into it, almost bought one. But I said, no, that's not for me. And then through YouTube, I saw people living in their car. And that's why I said, wow, I could do that. I'm a very adaptable person. I think I could do it. I'm young enough. I'm going to give it a shot. And so that started the journey. And I've shared that in other videos, as far as living in my car. So then I was like patiently waiting in New Jersey while taking vacations to Florida to scout out Florida, to see what part of Florida I like the best, because Florida's such a big state, and it has so many different cultures and feels depending on what part of the state you go to. So for 2 years, I took my vacation time. I came to Florida. Every time I would go back up north to New Jersey, I would get so aggravated and upset. I said, and I documented that in videos. Every time I would go up to New Jersey, I said, Sam, you make a mental note that every time you come back up north, you aren't missing anything. Because I would come back up north, it'd be cloudy, it'd be rainy, it'd be cold, and it was just aggravating. Because I said, I think I'm missing something up north, but I'm not. And then I even came back up to New Jersey in the summer, which it can be nice in the summer, but it's so crowded at the Jersey Shore, and I like the beach. And what I found best, I said, Sam, look, even if there's some nice months or weeks that you can visit New Jersey in the summer or anywhere, it's better to take a vacation to New Jersey than to live in New Jersey. Right? So some people say, like, Sam, it's always hot in Florida. It's too hot in Florida in the summer, or it's rainy in Florida in the summer. Why would you want to stay there? I said, well, for me, in my opinion, now that I really have experienced both, I'd rather live in Florida and take a vacation somewhere else than live somewhere else and take a vacation to Florida. Because the majority of the year, Florida is beautiful. And even in the hot summer, I like it because I like to sweat and I like the culture and vibe of Florida better. But that being said, I'm giving you context of the end game. So the end game is in Florida, which I'm in. It was to get a job transfer, which eventually I got with my company that I was able to work remote. And so the only other piece of the puzzle was I going to buy property? Which I came close this last fall after being in Florida for a few months. I found a RV lot, which is a raw paved lot with utility hookups, but I didn't have an RV. I said the lot was only $25,000. It was kind of in the country land. It wasn't by the coast, 45 minutes away from the beach. And I seriously considered it. And I still once in a while say, I don't know if I should have bought it. But it was the entanglement. I would have had to buy an RV. I would have had to get into an HOA, homeowners association, and I'd always be like kind of committed to that part of Florida. And I wasn't there mentally. I was close because I think that's very affordable. I mean, very cheap, very affordable, and it's still an option. I mean, prices have gone up a little bit, but the only other part of my end game would be eventually I'll buy an RV lot maybe and put some type of small RV on there. But right now, what it does is it just takes away a level of flexibility. I'm still very flexible, and if things got very hard being remotely at campgrounds or truck stops, then I'll keep that as an option. And I also, part of my end game was finding other sources of revenue, other sources of income that if I ever need to, whether I lost my job or want to change my life, I have that. And through, now YouTube counts, but YouTube is a very long shot and it's a very low reward for a lot of output. You make a lot of videos, very hard to get a lot of views, and I think I've done videos about how much I make. So for every 1,000,000 views, you get about $2,500. So my total on my channel for almost 2 years, I've got 2 million views. So over the course of 2 years, I've made $5,000. That's pre-tax, that's before expenses. So that's poverty, it's below poverty. So to have a YouTube channel that you can count on as a serious source of income is very hard, but it's a source, right? So then also recently I found DoorDash as a side hustle. Now the main driver is still my main job, my IT remote job. And I want to keep that as long as I can because it's a blessing. I worked hard to build my career. But I just, in my mind, like you plan for your future, you plan for the end game. I plan like if something would happen with that, having other sources of revenue so that I can, if I wanted to, I have the option. I like options. I can use my creative gifts, which is making videos. I like to drive. DoorDash is a little bit of fun. It's a little bit of work. Just other things that I could always kind of like be self-sustainable. And I don't have high expenses, so I don't need a lot. And, you know, even if it would be also some type of an investment or something. But the end game was to live in Florida, live simple so that I can do other things other than a high corporate job to create an income. I can live more on my terms without on the hook to anyone with lower commitments or no commitments. The only thing at this point that I could see changing is maybe me eventually buying a home base. But right now, I don't see enough value added versus what I'm going to sacrifice as far as entanglement, commitment, and a level of aggravation because of those things that I don't like. And I look at my age and I look at my position in life and it's not necessary. If tomorrow it becomes necessary, I'm leaving as an option. See, that's the thing. I like to leave all options on the table, and I like to be able to change my mind at any time, and that's what no commitments and no obligations gives you. So if tomorrow I see a great deal on the home base and I feel like, I'm getting tired of living on the road, I would do it. But right now, what I've been able to find with campgrounds and remote camping is that not an issue at this point today. So my end game is pretty much where I'm at, continuing to build side income. Maybe as I progress, some type of home base, but I'm not itching for the next thing because my core things, you should focus on what are your core things. My core things were living in Florida the majority of the time of the year. My core thing was living so below my means that I am not going to be on the hook to other people or things that I have to work to make payments. I have to work to pay for a house. I have to work to pay for, I have to work. You have to work for income, for your freedom. Without income, you have nothing. But I also wanted to build other sources of revenue so I can work on things I love. And that's important. That's part of the end game. The end game is you living your best life, enjoying each day. Enjoy the journey. Enjoy the journey. Because if you go, the end game is from a house to an RV to a home base, it may be for you. You define your own life and you change your mind at any time. But start to make videos, or maybe don't want to make a video, but start to talk it out like I'm talking it out. Because then you start to really define what you're looking for instead of just defining a high. And that's why I think many people get caught in the high of building out a van, of buying an RV, and then the reality hits. I've often made videos that there's the idea and then there's the reality. I got into a relationship one time and a girl said, Sam, you like the idea of a relationship, but you don't like the reality. And the reality is you lose options when you're in a relationship. The reality is it's sacrifice to deal with someone else's emotional burdens. The reality is when you're high, they may be low. When they're low, you're high, and you can never get in sync. The reality of an RV is it's expensive. It's not efficient with gas. You can't park it anywhere. More eyes are on you. But the reality of, living in your car, there's a lot of movement. There's some discomfort. You don't have a climate controlled area all the time. Some people can't deal with that constant change. So knowing yourself, defining yourself, and refining yourself as you go is like the end game. It's a constant evolution. That's the end game of life, but magnified when you're living in a car because you are so not attached. You are so non-conformed to this world because you're living a little bit odd while still respecting the laws of the land and being respectful. It's a challenge to live in your car, but I like the challenge a little bit because life can get boring to me and life can get more, and like I need not a challenge, but I need something like to spark me a little bit. And the movement, it just all plays to my strengths, this lifestyle. For some people, they get into this lifestyle, it doesn't play to strength. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with changing your mind. But define what's your end game. My end game is Florida. My end game is being in control of my future as far as my living below my means, financial freedom, doing more things I love, using my creative gifts, being healthy, trying to balance, the proper self-care. And, eventually maybe a home base, but that's not really top priority. Maybe because I've had one, I had a house, but I've owned property. And so I know what it is to own property, but it's just not on my radar high priority, but it's still lingering if there's a better deal. That's the end game for me as I define it at this point. At any point I can change my mind. At any point you can change your mind. It's your life. Live your best life. Define what your end game is for you. Peace and love.